Conversations That Matter is a partner program of the Center for Dialogue at Simon Fraser University. The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your background. You're in the alternative energy space now, but that's not where you started.
No, it certainly isn't, Stu. I started as a geologist, as a young geologist. I wanted a job that would take me outdoors because I've always loved nature and I've always loved the outdoors. So I became a geologist at UBC, and then I started working as a young student in the 1970s up in northern British Columbia, the Yukon, Alaska, and migrated to other countries in the world, and started my own company in 1980, Beaty Geological Limited, and just hung out a shingle. And in 1985, I decided to venture into the business of resource company development, and I started my first public company.
So you were extracting minerals from the earth?
Just pretty much right from the start, and I've had a long career in the mining industry and mineral exploration. But it really wasn't until 2008 that I went into the alternative energy business.
Why? What happened? You go from this business that a lot of people who would be on the that would be applauding what you're doing now would say, "What were you doing that for?" What happened to change the direction in your life?
You know, it was kind of an evolution, I'd say. I had done 13 companies or 12 companies by 2008 in the minerals business. Sold most of them quite successfully, made quite a bit of money. Had a lot of fun, worked with a great group of people, but it just, you know, I kind of retired from that business in 2008. I got rid of all my activities with all the other companies that I was involved with then. I became chairman of my largest company, Pan American Silver, and retired as management. But I wasn't really ready to go golfing. I'm not interested in golfing, and I wanted to do something green. I wanted to do something that would be kind of good for my kids and their world and the future of the future. And at the time, there's a lot of angst, you could say, about clean energy, about the carbon in the atmosphere. Global warming was very current, and I thought maybe I can do something that uses my geological background, my entrepreneurship, my business skills, and try to build a clean energy company focused on geothermal power. This is 2008. Geothermal power, so drilling holes in the earth, looking for hot water, which comes to surface along it through a drill pipe, boils at surface, turns a turbine, and generates electricity. Geothermal power, clean energy driven by the free power from the earth. So I thought I'd build a company based on geothermal power, and that lasted a couple of years. I took it public in 2009, discovered that geothermal power was actually a very tough business, very high risk. And then I bought...
hang on, just let me give me a little bit more clarification around what makes geothermal such a high-risk venture, because you go, sounds pretty simple, drill a hole in the ground, up comes the water, drives a turbine.
Well, it's a lot easier said than done. I'll say that. It sounds great. I thought it was a panacea for energy generation. I thought if you drilled deep enough, you'd find hot rocks. If you connected water with the hot rocks, it would turn to steam, drive a turbine, make electricity. A global solution, and I really thought it was undeveloped fully in the world. What I discovered, in fact, was that, of course, the Earth is very complex. You drill holes into the ground. The Earth is extremely complicated in temperature, highly variable. In rock composition, highly variable. You're in volcanic systems, there's earthquakes, and there's, you know, these are volcanic systems. If you drill deep enough, you can actually drill into magma, liquid rock, which is impossible to generate power from. And it causes all kinds of problems in drilling. So you need heat, you need water, you need permeability, and you need the right chemistry. And it's very rare to find that in Earth systems, in enough of a combination to generate electricity from. By 2008 or 9, the world was generating about 10,000 megawatts from geothermal power. So it was it's an established industry. It's been around for 50 or 60 years. In fact, 100 years.
In those locations where all those components come together.
Precisely. Yeah. So I spent about $180 million in this company, and really discovered that it was just too high risk a business for a small company. We bought a couple of plants. Most of our money went to buying a couple of plants, one in Nevada, which generates electricity from geothermal power, and then a big one in Iceland, a couple of large plants in Iceland that generate 175 megawatts. It's a lot of power for geothermal power. It goes day and night, 24/7.
So they're operational now.
They're operational now. They're big plants, very, very cheap power, but then I started drilling holes in Chile and exploring in Peru and in Italy and in Nevada and in Iceland, and we spent about 80 or $90 million, and we drilled a lot of dry holes. Well, a small company, each hole costs between $5 and $10 million per hole. You can't drill too many dry holes before you go belly up. So I kind of realized the risks of the business were very, very high, but the returns were kind of boring. So it was high risk, low return, utility, what we call utility returns, 10%, 12% returns over a long period of time, but very, very high risk on the entry point. So you really need higher returns than you get from the business.
So when you go drilling or looking for a mineral, there are usually some telltale signs that mineral may be present.
Absolutely.
Are they there for geothermal?
They are there for geothermal. The difference is a mineral exploration hole might cost $50,000, not $5 million. And that's the difference. You can drill dozens of dry holes in the gold exploration business, for example, and then have the 20th or 30th hole hit. And that pays for all the dry holes you've drilled. But you can't do that in geothermal because they're so expensive. You're drilling 2 kilometers deep. You have to have special holes that stop the hole from blowing out, really high temperatures, really acidic sometimes, water conditions. It's just a very, very risky business.
And specialized, very specialized.
Very specialized, and it turns out there are very few places left on Earth where these low, you could say low risk opportunities still exist. So you have to drill in higher risk places.
Oh.
So by about 2010 or so, I had realized it was a very tough business to found what I wanted to build, which was a world-class clean energy company. I mean, a big company.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? Because I'm thinking back to somebody had told me that there's great geothermal potential in British Columbia. No? Okay.
Not true.
All right.
Regrettably, I have scars all over me. I mean, I can say I really understand the business well. I mean, there is potential, you could say. Yes, there is potential. BC's got a number of volcanic areas in it that are some are active, some are quiet, not completely dormant. But, BC has all sorts of challenges, and there's transmission challenges, there's land status challenges, First Nation issues all over the place, social issues. You've got terribly difficult climate and terribly difficult terrain to deal with. It's just a really high-cost place to develop anything, let alone risky geothermal power, which is risky even if you have everything else going for it. I mean, if you're right beside a transmission line, it's still risky. Yeah. But in BC, you've got all those extra things piled on top. It's not a business that's going to be of any consequence for a long, long time in BC, unfortunately.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program. Thank you.
So you've spent $70 or $80 million on stuff that's coming up dry.
Yep.
Yet you stay committed to the alternative
totally,
sector. How come?
Well, the first and overriding reason is because I'm absolutely convinced that the Earth and the world needs to move to sustainable, renewable power for our electricity needs. We've got to get off carbon. I'm an absolute believer in the fact that carbon pollution is bad. It's causing all kinds of mayhem in the atmosphere, real costs to Canadian businesses, real costs to our children's future, and it's causing all kinds of invisible mayhem in the ocean, by the way. But that's another subject. So I just take it as a given that we're taking hundreds of millions of years of accumulated hydrocarbon and in a couple of generations burning it. I can't think of a more wasteful way to deal with an absolutely beautiful, valuable product like oil or gas or coal. It's just a crime to me, to future generations, that we're doing this. So that, to me, drives what I think is a truly long-term sustainable solution, and economic, by the way, today into renewable energy. So I moved my company. I've still got the company, and it's a lot bigger now than it was when we just had geothermal. We acquired a well-known Vancouver hydro and wind company called Plutonic Power. In 2011, we merged the two companies together. The company changed its name to Altera Power, and that's the company that we have today that we're trying to make into a really big clean energy company.
So you've got East Toba, Montrose, where you've got Run of River there. You've got up near Chetwynd or so the wind farm.
We have BC's biggest wind farm. We run BC's biggest Run of River hydro facility. We have all of our geothermal power in Iceland. We had 3 solar farms in Ontario that we built that we've sold. We've sold our geothermal plant in Nevada, but we are active in another 60 megawatt. We're spending $250 million right now just north of Powell River for another 60 megawatt Run of River hydro facility. And we're in the late stages, I mean the 11th hour, literally, of we're about 3 weeks away from closing on about a $350 million financing that will complete the cost to build a 204 megawatt wind farm in Texas that we're about a third of the way through construction on. So we're very, very busy, but really the direction of the company is away from geothermal. Not entirely, we're still of course active, but just not as focused. We're more focused on the easier stuff. I mean, wind is easy, solar is really easy. Hydro is easy, but quite hard to find good hydro projects. They've mostly been developed in the world. So if you have a choice between easy and hard, you go to easy. And the wind isn't as good a type of power because it's intermittent. Solar's problem is night. Hydropower is wonderful, except, as I say, there's not a lot of places that it's not already tapped, or where it's not going to be tapped because it's environmentally not appropriate.
And with Run a River, you need unique.
You do need a unique set of, especially in places where, for example, you have salmon. You cannot affect a river, a watershed with salmon in it. If at least in the active area where you're diverting some of the water from a stream, you can't do that where there's significant fish. So you have to be always above a waterfall that stops these important fish species like salmon.
Being in the Runner River space, I have to imagine that it must be a little bit challenging at times that you go, okay, I'm creating an ecologically sound and compatible power generation system, and yet you still have people complaining, but you're disrupting the environment.
You know, Kermit the Frog said it perfectly. It ain't easy being green. No. I mean, really, I've had more kind of, I would say NIMBYs or more political problems, more just sort of, just general grief on developing things in the clean energy business, way more than I had in the mining side, peculiarly and perversely. But that's our world.
And you're not shying away from it.
No, because again, I'm convinced that it's the right thing to do. And in the power business, when you're making electricity, the whole business is about finance. So really, it's all about the cost of capital. If you're trying to make money at it, which I am, this is a for-profit business. I've got a lot of shareholders, and we are making money, and we're running now as a successful long-term business. We'll be around for hundreds of years, hundreds and hundreds of years. That's a very cool thing. You don't get that in mining, by the way, because in mining you're depleting your future every single day. So my conviction is we just can't be big enough. The bigger you are, the lower your cost of capital, the better a business it is. And that just means you just want to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And again, every megawatt I can produce from clean energy is a megawatt we don't have to produce by burning coal or gas or oil. It's got to be good for the world long term. It's got to be good for my kids. It's just a win-win as I see it.
But it costs more to produce.
Not always.
No?
No, not at all. In fact...
well, that's the common perception.
Well, perceptions are typically founded upon data that is backward-looking. Right? So you could say that was probably true 10 years ago, that alternative energy was alternative because it was unusual. Today it's not. Today it's not alternative, it's mainstream. In fact, in 2014 there was more clean energy generated in the world, more new clean energy generated in the world than there was all gas, oil, and coal power combined.
Run that by me again.
In terms of new power production in 2014 globally, there's more new power production from renewable sources than from fossil fuels, which is a very, very cool thing. So it's no longer an alternative, it's mainstream, it's no longer expensive in all places, it's very much comparable to most other forms of power generation, if not cheaper. I mean, we're building a big wind farm, as I said, in Texas, and we can compete with almost every other source of power generation without subsidies.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program. Thank you.
How important are advances such as Elon Musk is talking about being able to create storage systems for any surplus that you're creating so that you can fill in the downtime?
That's kind of the next big technological development, and it's happening right now. It's not just Elon Musk. It's really hundreds of labs in the world are trying to generate the next best thing in terms of storage for electrical generation. It'll come. It's really we're in the middle of a kind of a revolution that's happening in clean energy storage, and the best of all, energy conservation. I mean, that's the best. That means you make more out of less. You have, and a lot of that is filtering into costs. So let's take Germany, for example. Germans pay about 3 times per kilowatt hour than Canadians do. About 3 times, sometimes 4 times, depending on where you are in Germany. But a household bill for electricity in Germany is less than Canadians pay because they conserve it a lot more. They don't waste as much electricity as we do. So even though the price per kilowatt hour is more, you could say it's more expensive power in Germany, which is true. The actual household bill is less because they use it more smartly. And part of the reason for that is because they have to pay more for it. It encourages conservation. And they're very smart engineers, they're very smart people, they have good buildings, they just don't have the same kind of power waste that we have. All brought to us by cheap power.
Well, yeah, I guess when there's that abundance. I know that when you go into so many homes in Europe now, there'll be a light switch that will turn off the plug because they don't want to be supplying phantom power to a machine that's not turned on.
Amen.
Yeah.
If you rent a car, you go to a stop sign, the car shuts off. You hit the gas pedal, the car starts and away you go. You don't waste that gasoline idling. There's all kinds of smart things the Europeans are doing that will filter their way here. And as we get technology developed, that will filter from here to Europe and to China. I mean, probably the most dramatic things that are being done in the renewable energy field today are in China. I mean, they're generating more renewable energy in a single year than the rest of the world combined is generating. In China. Solar power,
because everybody
wind
likes
power,
to point the finger at China
hydropower.
and go, look at the mess that they're making.
You know, they for sure have made a lot of messes. For sure, they have had unconstrained development, and for sure, their coal power generation has done immense harm to their environment and their people. And that party's over. The next 5-year plan, they're de-emphasizing coal, they're emphasizing renewable power, they're trying to get their cities cleaner. It's just a natural evolution, to me, of a society in the same way that we evolved that way in the mid-1900s. England evolved that way maybe in the 30s and 40s, away from burning coal to make heat in homes to something else because it was killing people and making killer fogs and things.
Right.
And we evolved that way in the 50s and 60s and maybe early 70s. And maybe we're still evolving that way, but the Chinese are catching up and they're moving that way, and they're developing technology that is going to continue to decrease the cost of making these clean energy businesses for global benefit.
When you invest in alternative energy, because I'm sure there's going to be people looking and listening to your enthusiasm going, I want to get in on that. But it's not a quick return game, is it? You got to have a long-term view.
It's like a utility. It's kind of boring, but it gives you stable and predictable returns. We have one contract, for example, the project we're building right now. It's a 60 megawatt run-of-river project called Jimmy Creek, north of Powell River in the coast of BC. As I said, it's about a $250 million project, and we've got, it's underway right now. It'll be producing by this time next year. That project is a project that really is, it's got a lot of consensus of approval, consensus of support, and I'm very keen on it because it's going to go for 40 years. We have a power contract that lasts for 40 years, so I can tell you what our revenue is going to be 40 years from now. Costs are very low. Once it's built, it's expensive to build. Once it's built, we amortize the cost over 40 years of the construction cost, and then the operating cost is it's not nothing, but it's not very high compared to the revenue we get. So it's a wonderful long-term business, should give us double-digit returns, and it's so different than the mining business where you never know from day to day what your revenue is going to be because you're basically dealing with a world commodity price that swings up and down and you have no control over. So you can put a lot of finance into the business of clean energy, and that's why the cost of capital is so important. That's why finance is such a key part of it.
Conversations That Matter is a not-for-profit program made possible thanks to the charitable support of the following and from viewers like you. Please visit conversationsthatmatter.tv and help us to continue to produce this program. Thank you.
Do you think alternative energy will play a significant role in our ability to get off of carbon-burning fuels that generate electricity? Because there are people who say it'll still be a drop in the bucket.
Right, and those people are I mean, there's plenty of negative people out there who are, as I say, looking back, not looking forward. I mean, it's already there. Germany, I mean, probably the most industrialized nation on earth, last summer had periods when it was generating, it was powered 100% on renewable energy. Germany.
The grid?
The grid, 100% renewable. If Germany can do it, we can do it, for sure. It has to be, government has to get behind it, the public has to get behind it. If they get behind it, absolutely industry can do it. There's enough wind, especially in a energy-rich country like Canada, I mean clean energy-rich country like Canada, we can do it too.
Are the days of the big power plants coming to an end then?
Absolutely. Yeah. But you have to remember, how Germany's done it is not just through new generation, but it's also through very intelligent demand. It's very intelligent consumption, I should say. In other words,
demand
conservation.
From the consumer. Yeah.
Exactly. Conservation is just as important as new generation. You've got to make better use of what you already have. We have a huge scope for that in Canada. Plus, you have to move away from the fossil fuel burning types of electricity generation into clean energy. Solar is really coming on like gangbusters absolutely everywhere, including Canada. Did you know that solar power is far more efficient in cold climates than in warm climates?
Huh?
It's just way more efficient.
I did not know that.
Because electricity moves more quickly with less resistance in a cold environment than in a warm environment. So Canada is well suited for that, and
so a cold sunny day is going to produce more.
A cold sunny is going to produce more electricity than a warm sunny day. Yeah, and in fact, at absolute zero, you have unlimited, resistance-free transmission of electricity. The colder it is, the more efficient it is.
So the high Arctic could.
High Arctic's fantastic in the summer, needless to say.
Yeah.
And then if you have a storage. If you have a storage system, then of course it can work during the night and other times when there's no sun. There's wind everywhere. There's running water in many parts of Canada. We already generate a huge amount of power from hydro. BC is almost entirely renewable, of course, because we have 94 or 96% coming from hydro already. So we're a long ways there. Now we have to move into getting our transportation systems on non-fossil fuel-based forms of power, electric power, hybrid power, and so forth, and that's coming as well.
Are we moving fast enough?
We're moving pretty fast. You know, we're doing a lot. There's a lot of things going on right now. I said before, it's like we're in a revolution, and I really see that. I see that in what's happening in the power generation business. I see that in electricity conservation. I see that in social movements where people want, I mean, Vancouver, for example, is trying to be the greenest city in the world by 2020, which they're going to hit. I'm confident they're going to hit. We're trying to get, there's a group trying to make all cities in the world 100% renewable. It's achievable. Certain cities are doing it today. There has to be a will, there has to be policy, there has to be some money put into it to catalyze the change. We're absolutely capable of getting there. And in the process of getting there, there will be so much new technology, new jobs created that it'll be a win for the economy.
I love the fact that you are so optimistic about the future, and you believe that we're going to find this
I've
solution.
seen it happening. It's in the last 5 years I've been in the trenches in this business. Geothermal, no, that's not going to be the answer all. But together, combining conservation methods with new generation from renewable sources, I'm 100% convinced it's achievable, and we will get there in my lifetime.
Here's to a great future.
Okay.
Thank you very much.